Hey guys, good to have you. This is Colin and this is Colin Talks Crypto. And today I'm going to bring you an update on the November 15th hard fork with the Bitcoin Cash saga/drama. Thank you for joining me. Okay guys, so this is appearing to get quite messy. So we have, if you saw my last video, two sides. We have BitcoinABC, created by Amaury Séchet and supported by Bitcoin Unlimited and Roger Ver and that group. And it seems like most of the exchanges and community as well. And then you have the other side of things, which is nChain, Calvin, Ayre, Craig Wright, and Jimmy Nguyen, and that whole side of things, including Coingeek. And that's a very small handful of people, but they have a lot of money. And you have Calvin Ayre, a multi-billionaire, and you have Craig Wright. They have access to a lot of money. And if you're familiar with how consensus works and how security works in Bitcoin, whether it's Bitcoin, BTC, or Bitcoin Cash, because they operate in the same exact manner, the network is secured by Hashrate. You have these ASIC mining hardware devices that basically burn through electricity to perform intense computational calculations, while all they're really doing at the end of the day is securing the network. And the proof of the security is in the cost of the electricity to burn and the cost of the mining hardware. And so we have a very interesting situation here where we have a group, Bitcoin SV, who is basically saying we are going to take over Bitcoin Cash and we're going to do it by force, and we're not asking permission, and it's happening on November 15th. And why can they do this? Because cryptocurrencies are supposed to be decentralized and immune to attack, right? Well, it comes down to the factor of security. And the key to this is in the amount of hash rate on each chain. So for example, take Bitcoin BTC. Right now it has approximately 50 exahashes, give or take, of hash rate securing the network. 50 exahashes is quite a lot, right? That's the most of any cryptocurrency in existence, period. Bitcoin has the highest security model of any cryptocurrency because it's the grandfather. Now, how much does Bitcoin Cash have? About roughly 5 exahashes. It fluctuates, right? They all fluctuate hour to hour, day to day, but approximately 5 exahashes. And so on average, Bitcoin Cash has approximately 6% to 10% only of the total hash rate that Bitcoin BTC has. That makes it very vulnerable as far as security goes when it comes to the network. And I've never seen anyone actually say they're going to attack the network, because it does require a lot of money still. It's not like any old miner can just do this. But when you have billions upon billions of dollars, like Calvin Ayre with Coingeek and Craig Wright of nChain, they do have the funds, and they have been planning this. It has been a premeditated attack, basically. And so what they've done is they've been buying up all the mining hardware from the #1 mining hardware creator, Bitmain, owned by Jihan Wu, which they are claiming is their arch enemy, essentially. And Jihan Wu of Bitmain says that Craig Wright is fake Toshi. So they're definitely at each other's throats on this subject. And so nChain and Coingeek have amassed an enormous supply of mining hardware, and they're starting to show that on the network. And so I'm going to put a graphic on the screen right now. This shows the mining pool breakdown as of today, November 12th, 2018, and I printed it out here so I can go along with you guys. So we have SV pool, we have Coingeek, BMG pool, and mempool.com. Those 4 pools are all supporting Bitcoin SV. And that adds up to 55.98%. They're over the 51% mark. They can successfully create the longest chain. So let's go over these pools real briefly, okay? So we have, as I said, Calvin Ayre, billionaire, has a pool called Coingeek. And it is purely and only his own mining hardware. He is not letting any outside connections to his pool. This is all his hardware. And then we have SV Pool, which is created by Craig Wright and managed and operated by nChain, basically one and the same. And that does allow public to join. We don't know, we have no proof of knowing how much public is joining that versus how much mining hardware from nChain. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter a whole lot, but that's SV Pool. Then there's BMG Pool. And that's also owned by Craig Wright / nChain. And that is only mining hardware from nChain, similar to Coingeek's pool, where they're only using their own hardware. Well, BMG pool is the same thing for nChain. That's their own hardware. They're not letting outside miners join that pool. And then we have a new one, mempool.com, which is also a Bitcoin SV pool. And so you total those up, 56% of the hash rate, and it fluctuates, right? It could go to 70%. It's been as high as 2/3. That's enough to take over the network. There's also another pool at the bottom here, OK Pool, which is about 7% of the total hash rate on Bitcoin Cash. And if you add that to what Bitcoin SV has with these other pools, you get 63% plus total hash rate. So to do a 51% attack on any network that's proof of work, you need only more than 50%. So they have well over that amount necessary to perform a 51% attack. So if they performed it today, they would be successful in doing so. That's very alarming when it comes to the security of a network. And it's worth noting that it's not that easy to perform this kind of attack on Bitcoin BTC because of the 50 exahashes of hash rate required. To do the same kind of attack, you would need an enormous amount of hash rate. And I would argue it's more hash rate than Calvin Ayre and Craig Wright and nChain and Coingeek could muster. But because they can muster it and they can afford it to attack successfully the Bitcoin Cash chain, they have amassed that and they are planning an attack on November 15th. Now, why do I say the word attack? Because you got two sides here, right? And who am I to say that Bitcoin SV is in the wrong and Bitcoin ABC is in the right, or vice versa? Obviously, I've already stated my opinion in my last video. I've stated that I think that Bitcoin ABC is taking the right technical approach to scaling. And please see that video if you haven't watched it already. And I have clips in that video of Amaury, the creator of Bitcoin ABC, stating specifically what his plans are for scaling and why. And essentially it relates to the fact that it's not possible to create 128 megabyte blocks without hitting bottlenecks that actually open up attack vectors on Bitcoin Cash. We need to just enhance the protocol and optimize it so that it doesn't hit these bottlenecks, so that when we do raise the block size to 128 megabytes and beyond, it can be reached without negatively affecting the network. So that's Bitcoin ABC's approach, and Amaury Séchet, again, watch that video if you haven't already. So who am I to say who's in the right or the wrong, right? The hash rate is the ruling decider. That's in the Bitcoin white paper, and Craig Wright makes that very emphatically known, and he's correct. The amount of hash rate on the Bitcoin network or the Bitcoin Cash network determines the longest chain, and that determines which chain is the valid chain. So if Bitcoin SV amasses more than 50%, they can legitimately create a longer chain. As far as technically speaking, right? Their chain will be longer because they've got the most mining hardware backing it up and the most hash rate. So their chain will be longer, and therefore they will be the dominant chain. And Bitcoin SV will be the ruling de facto client. Now, this is where it's really important to point out the fact that just because a mining pool has more than 50% of the hash rate does not just make them an honest mining pool. In fact, the term 51% attack is exactly that kind of attack. That term would not exist if it was not possible to gather more than 50% of the network and perform an attack against the network. So it's really the difference between, do you have honest mining nodes who are trying to better the ecosystem, or do you have dishonest miners who are trying to harm the network? And I would argue in this case that we have a group of dishonest individuals who are going to be a net negative and who are going to harm the network under the guise of helping it. The guise is we want to scale to business use. But when it comes down to the actuality of what they're proposing, I've heard everything from Craig Wright, from blacklisting to ruining other coins, ruining other chains. And I'm going to put a couple quotes on the screen right now just to emphasize what kind of individual we have here. So just about 10 days ago, Craig Wright sent an email, a personal email, to Roger Ver, who then made it public because Roger Ver is very transparent and applaudably so. And it says, if you want a war, I will do 2 years of no trade, nothing. In the war, no coin can trade. So he's basically saying, we're going to do whatever it takes, and I will be willing to stop all transactions on the Bitcoin Cash network if that's what it takes to get what I want and to take over control. He says, if you want ABC, you want shitcoins, welcome to bankruptcy. So another threat. It was nice knowing you. Bitcoin will die before ABC shits on it. I will see BCH trade at 0 for a few years. Will you? Side with ABC. You hate Bitcoin. You are my enemy. You have effing no idea what that means. You will. I am Satoshi. Have a nice life. You will now discover me when pissed off. And no, you could have had proof. Your choice. F-U, Craig. The FU part's blocked out by the Bitcoin.com logo there. So that's the most recent message to Roger Ver from Craig Wright. And if you notice in that statement, he says, welcome to bankruptcy. So Craig Wright is all about threatening legal action. And I'm going to put another tweet up here where he's, again, threatening legal action using legacy legal systems to attack others and to threaten. You know, whether he's just waving his saber and threatening or he's actually going to do it is irrelevant. But this type of character is completely opposite of the morals and the code of conduct that is Bitcoin. We do not appeal to authority. We do not appeal to the legacy governmental system or legal system that Bitcoin is designed to overthrow. So with Craig threatening legal action left and right, this is a huge red flag as to why this individual and group would be a horrible choice, in my opinion, to have taking over Bitcoin Cash. And again, that's why just because a mining pool has over 50% of the network hash rate does not mean they are a benevolent miner. And in fact, in this case, based on this kind of message, I would say they are an enemy and they are attacking. They are performing a 51% attack. Now here's another message. I put this on my last video. I'll just put it up real quick here. This is another message from WeChat. Again, Craig Wright speaking and demonstrating how he handles things and how he most likely will handle things. He says, no split. I rather all dies than Bitcoin is fucked. We can hold and dump. I have 1.1 million BCH, 1.05 million BTC. I win or it all goes down. No end. This is war. It is to death this time. No compromise ever again. I need say no more. It speaks for itself. So with that all being said, Bitcoin SV seems to be an attack on Bitcoin Cash, and they are basically acting like it, right? And they're saying it outright. So now there was a recent interview with Craig Wright on Tone Vays' YouTube channel, and I watched the entirety of this video. And Tone Vays, I have to give it to him, asked a lot of really good questions. He asked a lot of the same questions I would have asked Craig Wright as well. And one of them, among many that stood out, was, what makes your mining setup having more than 50% of the hash rate? So how is this decentralized? Or how is this trustless? And Craig answered with this response, which I find very odd and incorrect. He said, we have the incentive to be honest. If we have more than 50% of the hash rate, we have the incentive to be honest, because if we were to go and do some fraud on the network, or we were to reverse some transactions, or we were to do anything that reduces the value of the chain, then we would be hurting ourselves. So therefore, because we are incentivized to be honest, we will be honest, and therefore it's not an attack. And that's where I would completely disagree with this statement. We have at that point a centralized entity in control of a cryptocurrency, a decentralized cryptocurrency, which is at the mercy of SV and Coingeek of being honest. They're at the mercy. They're saying they'll be honest. How do we know? We have no idea. It's the same situation where we have to trust one central entity. We have to trust the Federal Reserve to not abuse our dollars and print endless amounts, but yet they do so, and we're at the mercy. We can't stop them from doing so. Well, Craig Wright is doing the exact same thing by having 50+% of the hash rate in one group, and he can justify it all he wants and say that this is, you know, still honest because he's incentivized to be honest, but shit, the Federal Reserve would say the same thing. You know, well, we have to be honest, so you can trust us. Well, I don't trust that, and that's not what I got in cryptocurrency for. I got in cryptocurrency for decentralized, trustless, immutability, and censorship resistance. And right now, if Bitcoin SV takes over, they are going to have more than 50% of the hash rate, and therefore they can do whatever they want. And some of the things out of Craig Wright's mouth have been utterly in stark contrast to the morals of Bitcoin itself. And I actually would suspect he may try to take down Bitcoin Cash, but it's very unnerving to see that take place. So the real question that remains is, how is this going to play out on November 15th? And there's a lot of different ways it could play out, and I don't think anyone knows for sure. You know, we could have everything from pools jumping on board from Bitcoin BTC to attack Bitcoin Cash further, and it would be in their best interest to do so, because anyone who's holding BTC would want to destroy the Bitcoin Cash chain. It's all about financial motives here, right? And if Bitcoin BTC has 50 exahashes of hash rate, it would not be much for a couple pools to mine at a loss for a couple hours or a couple days and attack the Bitcoin Cash network along with Bitcoin SV in support of Bitcoin SV, because Bitcoin Cash is a threat to Bitcoin BTC. So that could be one thing that happens. Another thing that could happen is you have Jihan Wu or some of these other mining pools that are in favor and supporting Bitcoin ABC and want to defend it. And they could throw a lot of hash rate all of a sudden in support of Bitcoin ABC. So I suspect we may see a tremendous, enormous amount of hash rate for some period of time hop onto Bitcoin Cash during the November 15th period and that period following it. And it's really anyone's guess as to how long that's going to last. Craig Wright seems to think that he's willing to do it for an indefinite period of time and so on. So does Jihan Wu have a bunch of mining hardware that he can suddenly switch over? He can't legally do it with mining hardware of his customers because they're using his pool, but he doesn't own their hardware, right? So he can't just make decisions for them. So would he do something like that? Craig Wright taunts him and asks him to do so. So this is the drawback of having a chain that has less security and less hash rate securing it. It can be attacked by malicious actors who want to destroy it because it doesn't have enough security defending itself. And I would say, as much as I love Bitcoin Cash, that's its one drawback. It doesn't have enough security backing it. And so we're going to see, this could be the first major attack, a 51% attack of a major nature. Of course, there's been some very minor ones in the past, of a top 5 cryptocurrency. And we'll see how resilient is Bitcoin Cash. Can it weather the storm? Will someone with mining hardware come to its rescue? Because at the end of the day, it's all about hash rate. And ironically, as Craig Wright puts it, it's not proof of social media. He's right, it's not proof of social media. It comes down to hash rate. So do we have enough hash rate to defend the chain? Now that being said, let's say in a worst case scenario, this is my opinion of what a worst case scenario would be, Bitcoin SV has enough hash rate on November 15th and does successfully attack the Bitcoin Cash chain and takes it over. It is now hypothetically under nChain's control. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's over for Bitcoin Cash ABC. There could be everything from proof of work change, which would be, I think, horrible and detrimental, to replay protection, to splitting the network into 2 chains, and then we'd be in the same boat again with another minority fork off of already minority fork from BTC going to BCH, and we would continue on that chain. But the one clincher here is the market. Hash rate can split the network, but the market determines the value of the coins of those networks, and that's a very, very key factor. As I said at the beginning of this video, a lot of the exchanges are in support of BitcoinABC. Whether that remains that way is yet to be seen. A lot of the public opinion and users, actual users, are in support of BitcoinABC. We have the trolls in favor of Bitcoin SV, but that's just what that is, right? So real users, real exchanges, real people, real businesses tend to want BitcoinABC to succeed. Not all, but most, right? So the value should flow to the BitcoinABC chain regardless of what that is after it's attacked. And if Bitcoin SV is what people don't want, the value should reduce and the price per SV token should drop. So right there is how the market sorts itself out. And that's how everyone still has a say in this, despite the hash rate. So it's a very diverse, complex topic. Hash rate's going to determine the chains that win, but the market's going to determine the values of those chains. And miners will follow the profitable chains to mine. So, like I said, this is going to be very interesting. How it's going to play out is anyone's guess, but stay tuned. Let's check this out, and thank you for watching Colin Talks Crypto.